is John Murphy at Murtech.com with your daily news update. Okay, here we are on April 25th in the year of our Lord 2026, and I've got a ton of information for you tonight. Let me click over here to Murtech on Rumble. There we go. Let's slide down here, and this is the live stream we're going over tonight, episode 1898. Let's go ahead and click into this. Let me pause that. And this is the live. And close out the live chat. Slide down here and click the show more button to expand out the description box. We have information from And We Know, Devory Darkins, Doug in Exile, and Dr. Steve Turley. But before we get into that, I've got a bunch of shout outs to give. Citus just followed me. 1979 Lowrider just started following my channel. Perception Quest just started following me. Stevia B just started following me. Peggy T just started following my channel. And Monsoon 9mm, 9mm I guess, just started following my channel. So thank you very much, folks, for following me. I greatly appreciate that. I hope you're tuned in and I hope you enjoy the content. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Monsoon 9mm commented on my daily news wrap-up. Kim's Coffee Talk responded to my my short extra 680B. Debbie BS reposted my episode 1897. And Debbie BS reposted my extra 678A. RW Radical commented on my episode 1897. Debbie BS commented on my extra 679A and 679B and 679C. I guess she had some catching up to do. Stevia B, Q Mick, Cotton Ball 31, and Debbie BS commented on my extra 680A. Debbie BS commented on my extra 680B and my extra 680C. So thank you very much, folks, for reposting my videos and all your comments. I enjoy reading your feedback, and I definitely appreciate your support. So thank you very much. Let me give this a thumbs up. All right, good night, sweetie. Good night.
Good night.
All right, don't let the bug. Okay, I won't. Good night. Love you. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Little interruption there, telling the girls good night. Okay, here we go. Let's jump into this. And we know CAO, JFK Jr., Sig Intercept, VA rigged, 10x speed underway, SPLC takedown, 17S again, and 17s again, and pray. All right, well, let's get into this. We probably won't get all of this in, but I will include this in my daily news wrap-up. So here we go. Let's take a listen and see what they have to say here.
There.
What do you say to the American people who question how much longer this will take? Obviously, you know that they are having
You're such a disgrace. Did you hear what I just said? Vietnam. How many years was Vietnam?
I understand, sir. But
How
you
many
are
years
past
was
your
Vietnam?
six-week deadline. So
Well, I did my.
I'm just wondering what you say to the American people.
I took the country out militarily in the first 4 weeks. I took it out militarily. Now all we're doing is sitting back and seeing what deal. And if they don't want to make a deal, then I'll finish it up militarily with the other 25% of the target.
How about that? He's had enough. And they're wondering, right? This media. I mean, if you listen to her one more time, just listen to this.
What do you say to the American people who question how much longer this will take? Obviously, you know that they are having
You're such a disgrace. Did you?
How much longer is this going to take with Iran? What are you going to do? And he says, do you see what I said about all these other wars? I mean, he goes to Vietnam. I mean, look how many years Vietnam took, right? Nearly 2 decades of war. World War I, World War II. How long were those? He just told us all that. So instead of taking the words that he's already given out to them, to the mainstream media, and using those words that he's already presented and using that in their broadcasts and their documents and more. Nope, we're going to question him to his face and make him answer. And then folks would say, oh, he's so angry when he answers. Well, you know what? He has a right to be upset. He's giving them all the information. She's only doing gotcha questions because that's what they do. All they do is sow all these seeds of doubt into the minds of the people day in and day out. And you say, well, I don't think that's very nice, or that's not very Christian-like for those that might, well, let's just remind you, there were some tables flipped and some whips put together. Well, that wasn't the same thing. Well, you know what? He had a right to be upset. We have a right to be angry, but sin not. And it really gets me upset, folks. This mainstream media, why do they even let these guys in anymore? Well, let's continue.
Are you okay with that, sir? If oil goes to 200.
I think that there's nothing worse than a nuclear weapon that takes out one of your cities or two of your cities or three. I think there's nothing worse than a nuclear weapon that's going to destroy the Middle East, including Israel. I think there's nothing worse than Europe being under attack by people that have missiles now that reach Europe. As you know, they don't reach us, but they reach Europe. But they will reach us at some time, probably the not too distant future, unless we stop them now. I think there would be nothing worse than having nuclear holocaust in Europe, London, Paris, various places in Germany, all targeted. No, what I say is you can't let them have. I don't think it will happen, by the way. I really think we actually, it turns out that we are drill baby drill, and it turns out we're producing a lot of oil, and they're buying the oil. They're going to Alaska, they're going to Texas, Louisiana, and our guys have done a fantastic job. We're putting out right now more oil and gas than we ever have in the history of our country. And one other thing, there are more people employed today in the United States than ever in the history of our country. Okay.
So, remember when old Kamala was out there stating that Iran was a threat, and we talked about this in our past videos and showed those clips of her stating we need to do something about Iran. And they said, what would what they're threatening America? They said they're going to, throw some bombs at us or whatever. And she said, don't. Right. And so, they were all against it and everything. And if she would have been sitting in this seat and telling them, well, we're going to, have to, we have to stop Iran because they could have had nuclear bombs hit Europe, London, Paris, various places in Germany. They could have been all targeted. They would have said, wow, we believe you, Kamala. Thank you for saving the whole world and doing this, But President Trump's telling you the information direct. But they've spent all these years, more than a decade now, lying to the people to make it look like he's this terrible person. He's given you intel. Did you realize that they had nuclear weapons? Do you realize where they were aiming these weapons? If they would have gotten a hold of nuclear weapons, where they would have aimed them? Do you realize we had to take them out? And then we're discovering the nuclear dust, right? That we need to get it back. Well, why was it here in the first place? If we need to get it back, it came from America. Well, who gave it to them? Obama and Hillary Clinton. It's just all this stuff that reporters can take, run with it, front of the newspapers, at the top of the broadcast every single day. Nope, they don't want to tell us that. All they do want to do is play gotcha. Why? Because they are all trained and paid off by evil. By evil. Thankfully, they're going to continue this to rescue the people of Iran, right, from the Islamic Republic that has taken over 47 years and destroyed them and killed thousands, hundreds of thousands of people because they didn't follow their dictators. Democrat resolution designed to force President Trump to end Operation Epic Fury failed in the Senate 46-51. The second time they tried and failed. Democrats are absolute pros at wasting time, money, and resources, all to tie Trump's hands while he gets results. Operation Epic Fury continues. President Trump stays in control. He put this out. I have ordered the United States Navy to shoot and kill any boat, small boats, though they may be. Their naval ships are all 159 of them at the bottom of the sea, that is putting mines in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. They're dropping mines, folks. There is to be no hesitation. That's it. These boats that are coming in, they're dropping mines to cause problems and kill people. That's it. They're done. Additionally, our minesweepers are clearing the strait right now. I'm hereby ordering the activity to continue, but at a tripled up level. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Interesting, because if you take all the capital letters, 368 of them, thanks to DC Lidstone, you go to number 368 on the keyboard, on the board, the intel that goes to us around the mainstream media. We would not intentionally harm a person in the pursuit of a target. This was retaliatory. Wow. Almost like they're getting that message straight to us. Now, let's continue with the mainstream media. This is Jim Acosta's girlfriend, Elise Landers, White House correspondent, PBS NewsHour Signal.
We used a nuclear weapon against Iran. You posted on social a few weeks ago.
Why would a stupid question like that be asked? Why would I use a nuclear weapon when we totally, in a very conventional way, decimated them without it? No, I wouldn't use it. A nuclear weapon should never be allowed to be used by anybody.
Would you use a nuclear weapon? What a stupid question. Elise Landers, PBS. They let her in. There she is. I'm going to ask him another gotcha question. We're just going to play attack with him all the time. Instead of asking him normal questions, talking about the great things that are happening around the world, the 40 or 50,000 lives that were killed in Iran, that finally they're getting the families out of there and they're rescuing them. They're destroying this regime that does nothing but kill people. Instead, it's, hey, you're going to drop a nuclear weapon. Are you going to do the very things that these people were doing to their own, in their own country of Iran, that they were doing to the people there? How stupid. You see the games they play? Now, pretty soon, we're going to see some bigger moves playing out when it comes to the military, especially with the Navy. President Trump said, I'm pleased to announce that Hung Chow will be our next United States Undersecretary of the Navy. Hung is the embodiment of the American dream as a refugee to our great nation. Hung worked tirelessly to make proud the country that gave his family a home. He went to our amazing United States Naval Academy and later earned his master's degree in physics. Hung served in combat as a special operations officer for 25 years. With Hung's experience both in combat and the Pentagon, he will get the job done. Congratulations to Hung and his wonderful family. Now, I'm going to show you some interesting things about Hung Chow and how he is a very strong leader, and some videos that he put out. True American success story. Fled communist Vietnam. Rose to become our new acting Secretary of the Navy. I'm going to show you that video in a moment, and also the connections, even on the keyboard. Stand by for that. Well, folks, let me tell you something straight. You know that we are the ones spending hours digging into what's really going on in the world. We question the narratives, we look at the source, and we discern to find what is real,
Okay,
which makes it
past this commercial here.
on in the world. Your omega, a nutrient, algae ore.
If you're not willing, gentlemen, we came to this country with nothing. We asked nothing from this country. And I always tell people, don't come to this country and ask for the American dream if you're not willing to obey the American laws and embrace the American culture.
It's Hung Chow.
And together, we will make this America great again. Thank you so much. This is the scariest sound you will hear when you live in a communist country. This is the last sound my parents heard when their fathers were taken away in the middle of the night, and they never saw their loved ones again. That's the sound of losing your freedom, the sound of always living in fear. That's my family's real life story. We escaped from Vietnam just days before Saigon fell to the communists. We were given a new life in the most generous country on earth. America saved my life. I graduated from the United States Naval Academy. I earned a master's in physics and fellowships at MIT and Harvard before the left replaced merit with racial quotas. I spent my life trying to repay my debt to America, my country, our country, with 25 years of service in Navy Special Operations, combat in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Somalia. But now our country has taken a dark turn. That's Joe Biden's Justice Department sending 24 armed agents to arrest a pro-life activist in front of his family. That's Joe Biden's IRS raiding a gun shop and seizing thousands of records from law-abiding gun owners. Our names, our addresses, our social security numbers. That's Joe Biden arresting his challenger in the next election. a former president of the United States. And now a different sound. That's the sound of someone breaking into your home or business. The sound of crime destroying our cities and communities. That's how it all starts. They let criminals back on our streets. Millions of illegal immigrants pour across our border each year, including military-aged men from all over the world. And enough fentanyl to kill every man, woman, and child in this country. And the Biden family? Well, that's how it works in a dictatorship. The rules don't apply to the rulers. We are losing our country. You know it, but you also know you can't say it. Say that wrong is right. We're forced to lie. We can't let that happen. I've been all over the world. Believe me when I tell you, if America fails, there's nowhere else to go. I'm Hung Cao, retired Navy captain, running for United States Senate.
I just realized I said his name wrong. I said Chow, it's Cow, so I apologize for that. But I wanted to ensure we realize who's in charge. They're at the Navy now. Undersecretary of the Navy. He's put this out on X, Twitter, probably this weekend. 23 years ago, I salvaged the plane wreckage of JFK Jr., his wife, and her sister off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. As a Navy diver, it was an honor to assist an iconic American family during such a difficult time of grief and tragedy. Very interesting. Because when you look at this, and you look at Sig Intercept on board, that's right underneath where we were told April 8th, 2018, President of the United States, that's Trump, and JFK Jr. relationship, they were friends. Plane crash 1999. Remember, they told us JFK Jr. crashed, and we already know the truth behind all of that. I've told it to you. I've explained it to you, and we went into extreme detail on those that attended the cruise about that. HRC Senate 2000, the start. Enjoy the show. The start of what? The start of the operation. Then you had Sig Intercept, old to new as the world turns. So amazing that we have the intercept and the signals put out for all of us to see. And the very guy who claimed that he salvaged the plane wreckage of JFK Jr., his wife and her sister off the coast of Martha's Vineyard, happens to be the guy that they just put in charge there. Really good stuff. Really good stuff.
The Virginia Department of Elections earlier today and asked them if they had seen any evidence of election tampering, of fraudulent mail ballots being cast in the Tuesday election, or if there was any evidence of non-citizens voting in that election. Why did you say that that election was rigged?
Well, you have mail-in ballots, and they found a lot of them at the end of the day. All of a sudden,
another rigged election in Virginia, and he called it out. Why do you say that the election's rigged in Virginia? Here we go again. Same media, instead of taking the information that the President of the United States puts out and says, you know what, we're going to do an investigation and find out how that happened, instead of going back and watching the video showing that they flipped it within 5 minutes and somehow 40 or 50,000 ballots showed up out of nowhere so that Virginia could go back to the Democrats so they continue to win. Instead of investigating, we're going to question President Trump and make him look bad because that's what they get paid to do.
Received no credible information related.
Well, I know you'd say that no matter what. You know, you've been saying that for years, and now they're finding out that the 2020 election was totally rigged.
That's right. She said, there's no credible information for Virginia being rigged. And he goes, you've been saying that for a while.
And when you look at what just, excuse me, how do you defend what just happened where your Southern law, whatever it is, has given money to KKK? They're supposed to protect people, and they're paying all these people, crooked as can be, millions of dollars going all to all these people that they're supposed to be protecting from, but they're actually supporting them because they want to have companies that they can protect and because they want to rig elections. That was all a rigged election. All of the things with Charlottesville, all of the stuff that they did. And you won't bring that up, but you'll bring up some nonsense. Let me tell you, the election, we're winning all day long. It's a totally horrible situation. Hopefully the courts will overturn it, what they did in Virginia. You have a grossly incompetent governor.
That's right.
You had a very good governor, did a good job. You know, all those companies that want to move into Virginia now, they want to move out and go to a different location. So that's my opinion. I believe it was a rigged election. Virginia's known for it. It was a rigged election. They had a lot of ballots, mail-in ballots. Anytime you have mail-in ballots, you have cheating. Did you have something?
Yep. Mail-in ballots and cheating. You know, President Trump posted this right after all of this press conference and more. And it says, for those listening and not watching, it's a guy holding a sign with the USA hat, red hat. Stop telling us who broke the law and start telling us who was arrested. President Trump posted that. It's very interesting because that post was at 12:29 a.m. and Ultra MAGA Dean Erickson was all over it. Okay. And if you look at 29, right? 12:29 Eastern time, which would be 29 military time. Q29, remember Q being that information spigot that gives us great info around the media. Some things must remain classified to the very end. The truth would sound so outrageous, most Americans would riot, revolt, reject, etc. The pedo networks are being dismantled. Pedophile networks, folks, are being dismantled. The child abductions for satanic rituals, Haiti and other third world countries are paused, not terminated until players in custody. We pray every single day for God's guidance and direction as we truly are up against pure evil. President Trump's telling exactly why arrests aren't happening publicly yet. Has to remain classified to the very end.
Yeah, it does. I've been saying that all along. They can't talk about the evidence they have because it would taint a jury. Okay? They can't hear that. People can't hear that until it's in the courtroom. Okay? All right, well, let me click on the Rumble link here. I'm like 22 minutes into this 1 hour and 7 minute video. And again, this will be in my daily news wrap up, so you'll get to see the rest of this. Let me click over here on the Rumble link and show you that this video does come from And We Know. This is a video I shared with you. I'm giving him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's jump back here. And I was doing a little chatting here with Debbie BS and Susie Poll 2016. So let's slide down here and see what Devory Darkins has to say about Omar goes into hiding amid fraud scandal as nightmare poll stuns Congress. Okay, well, let's check this out, see what he has to say about that.
In today's video, Ilhan Omar is in panic mode. She skipped out on a hearing in Minnesota that is now investigating the fraud allegations that surrounds her. And also, Congress has been hit with devastating news as a new poll shows the lowest approval rating in history. We'll get to more in this video, but let's start with this madness surrounding Ilhan Omar. Take a listen.
Minnesota Democrat Ilhan Omar skipping a hearing used to examine her potential ties to a massive state fraud scheme and now facing pressure from Republicans. As Tom Homan signals, the feds may get involved.
The whole file is being reviewed. A lot of smart people are on it. Stay tuned.
State correspondent Mike Tobin has got the details. He's with us in Chicago. Hi, Mike.
And, John, the issue Minnesota Republicans have with her is that Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is not facing the questions, not to reporters, not to the Minnesota House Committee on Fraud Prevention. You've got the issue of her family estate. Disclosures show she and her husband, Tim Minette, went from debt to anywhere between $6 and $30 million in 2024. A few weeks ago, a new disclosure was filed stating their combined assets were between $18,000 and $95,000. Her office blamed the discrepancy as much as $29 million on an accountant who failed to subtract the liabilities of Minette's businesses.
Okay, let's just say I'm not shocked by this announcement that she not only skipped out on this hearing, that the purpose is to investigate her fraud allegations, but that she's gaslighting the American people. She can't even answer simple questions of how a simple accounting error went from 30 million to 95,000 regarding her net worth. I mean, come on. I know I may be stupid at times and I may get a lot of things wrong here, but I'm not that stupid, right? And neither are you. And it's interesting how someone could be found guilty on 34 felonies for falsifying business records, but Ilhan Omar continues to walk around in Congress scot-free. You know, if you go over to her account on X, you'll find that you cannot reply to any of her posts. You can't. She has turned comments off on everything that she posts. The internet is after this woman, and she deserves it. Now, let's go to the legislator out of Minnesota who's investigating her fraud. Here's what they had to say during the meeting or the hearing that she skipped out on. Take a listen.
We invited Representative Ilhan Omar to this hearing. We left her 2 voicemails at the end of March. We've written 2 letters, one on March 13th and one on March 30th. We also sent an invite on April 15th via her scheduling portal, and we have not had any response. And I do think it's very important to this discussion. And so I'm just going to reference why I wanted to bring her into this conversation. And I know my friends on the other side of the aisle are curious, but so there's a lot of talk in a lot of these reports about how the Feeding Our Future happened because guardrails were taken off the federal school nutrition program. And that is absolutely true. And the first time that happened was in March of 2020. And it was, sorry, I'm looking for the name of the law. But it was in the Families First Coronavirus Pandemic Relief Act, passed in March of 2020. And one of the elements of that bill was something called the Meals Act, which was Representative Ilhan Omar's actual bill that she got incorporated into this larger coronavirus package. And that Meals Act is what took the guardrails down.
See, it's just another example of devastating policies that they will continue to gaslight us on. But first, please, you guys have been getting value from our channel because I know you're probably a loyal follower of mine, or if you're not, please like this video right now, share it with people you know, leave a comment down below, and make sure you are subscribed to our channel. Thank you so much for checking out our video today. This is the type of accountability and investigation that should be made public whenever politicians push through policy that creates disastrous results. We talked about this quite recently, especially on our live show, that what these politicians love to do is misdiagnose manufactured problems, come up with solutions that are based on falsified data or data that is truly manipulated to work in their favor. And then when things don't work out, they gaslight us all and call us racist. I mean, think about the criticism that the Somalian community has received over the level of fraud that they committed. And when you criticize them, what do they call you? This is the world that we are living in, folks. So let me just give you an example. So the reporter from Lindell TV, who's usually on Capitol Hill confronting members of Congress for their level of corruption and hypocrisy, she confronted Ilhan Omar when she was alone, and let's just say it didn't go very well. Take a listen to this.
There's some discrepancies on there. Would you like to explain that? How did you make such a big mistake on my sleeve before asking me anything? I have. Yes. Well, what about the American people who are wondering how you made such a big mistake? I have explained to the American people. What's the explanation? I have given them the explanation. Do you want to tell our viewers? Because I don't want to tell you, Jack. Oh, how about that? Ooh. Okay. Have a good day.
I mean, she's asking some serious questions that I think deserves a serious answer. I mean, I wonder what would happen if I said, as an elected representative, that I was worth $30 million, and then all of a sudden I was like, no, I'm actually worth $95,000, and chalked it up to some accounting mistake. I'm sure they would look into me a little harder. And so, you know, the criticism is definitely well deserved, in my opinion. And again, this is why members of Congress overall, has one of the lowest approval ratings in history. We will show you that here shortly. But first, let's go to someone who continues to defend her corruption, and that is Hakeem Jeffries.
Hi, Leader Jeffries. Good to see you. Just curious to get your thoughts on Ilhan Omar's financial disclosure. Does all of the scrutiny around that concern you at all, and does that warrant an official House ethics investigation?
That issue has not been brought to my attention, but we do know that Ilhan Omar, who works hard on behalf of the people that she represents in Minnesota, is constantly under attack by right-wing conspiracy theorists.
Well, what about her net worth going from $30 million to now under $100,000? Do you believe that's truly an accounting error, as she alluded to?
It's not an issue that I'm familiar with.
What about her winery that she is now dissolving from her financial disclosure?
We're working to stop this reckless war of choice in the Middle East, get the economy back on track. win this gerrymandering war that Donald Trump started, that we're going to finish. It's not an issue that I've been locked in on up to date.
And also, it's not an issue that I would care to be locked in on up to this date or even look into, because I already know what she's truly all about. And I would never in front of the camera say anything that could potentially jeopardize her career. I mean, that's really what he's saying, folks. And it's politics. It's Congress. I mean, they are going to protect their own, essentially. And even if they have to protect Congress overall, they'll do it. Again, this is a great segue into our next story. There's a reason why Congress has one of the lowest approval ratings in history, and it's not funny. I mean, this is disturbing news, and you're going to hear from both sides of the aisle as they react to this new polling. Take a listen.
86% of Americans disapprove of Congress. That is tied with November of 2013 for the all-time high. As I said, Congress usually hated, but usually not this hated. You're actually managing to tie records. Just 10%. Just 10% of Americans approve of the job that Congress is doing. So therefore, as I said, stand up and give yourselves a round of applause. You managed to do it. Congratulations.
Or walk away in shame. This 10% approval, give us some context to what all of this means in comparison with other things.
Okay, so you see this 10% approval, and I just was searching my head. I was like, okay, what else basically has 10% of the population by their side? Just take a look here. Okay, Americans who say that the moon landing was faked back in 1969. Sarah's side, they're off on the side laughing. More Americans say that the moon landing was fake back in 1969 than actually approve of the job that Congress is doing right now at 10%. That 10% is equal to the percentage of Americans that believe that the earth is flat.
Oh man, I mean, this is really the mother of all polls, if that makes sense, because it demonstrates, and I guess I shouldn't be laughing because, as I told you guys, this is a disturbing poll, but it demonstrates the level of incompetence I've been communicating on this show on both sides of the aisle. The Republican Party, they're just as incompetent. And that is the reality. The lowest number of legislation sent to the president's desk for signing. There's no way to argue against that. Now, whether it's because they don't want to do anything that may contradict the president, maybe they feel they don't need to do anything, maybe they don't believe in this agenda. I mean, at a certain point on the Republican side, you have to ask yourself as a voter, why hasn't Congress, particularly the Republican Party, taken the record number of executive orders from the president and tried to codify them? I mean, you'd think at this point there would have been every single day they are voting on something. What are they truly doing?
Congress's net approval rating among the GOP back in March of 2025, it was plus 33%. That was the net approval. Down it goes to minus 56. What is that? That's like an 89-point move over a little bit years' time. No wonder at this point Congress is facing record high disapproval rating, because even Republicans, and their party controls Congress, absolutely despises it.
All right, so let's get into the reactions to these polls from a couple of members of Congress. And what you're going to find is on both sides of the aisle, they are delusional. Again, they not only recognize how bad this poll is, or they refuse to recognize how bad it is, but they don't even actually take responsibility for it. I want to be clear about something. I don't actually believe the approval rating is due to how divisive the country has become. I think the approval rating is as low as it is due to the corruption that has become obvious. When you can't even pass a legislation that bans stock trading from members of Congress, when you hear the amount of money that members of Congress are making or becoming richer as time goes on, we just talked about Ilhan Omar, and let's not even forget about Nancy Pelosi. And then you see finally some allegations of sexual assault from some members of Congress that led to the resignation, but not the expulsion. And then you layer on just simple, basic common sense policies they have yet to pass. Yeah, I think that sums it up. But I don't think Chris Coons sees it that way. Take a listen.
There's a new poll out that shows about 1 out of 10 people think that Congress is doing a good job. Are you one of them? Do you think that's too high a number? 86% disapprove of Congress.
Look, what I think the American people are sick and tired of is division and dysfunction. And I continue to work across the aisle to introduce legislation and to get things signed into law. In December alone, President Trump signed 5 of my bills into law. And part of what I'm doing tonight is talking to my colleagues about measured, balanced, responsible legislation that'll address things from energy efficiency to housing affordability. But because there is so much division in our country, and President Trump dedicates so much of his time to trashing Congress, as well as breaking all of the guardrails in our system, I'm not surprised that we are not viewed positively by a majority of Americans.
I just stated, I don't think it's the division and dysfunction. I just think it's a lack of getting results on just basic common sense things that majority of Americans support. I mean, just think of avoiding a government shutdown. Most Americans support that idea. They should ban government shutdowns outright. I'm shocked no one has actually come out publicly and said, I want to introduce a bill to prevent government shutdowns from this point forward. Even if it fails, we haven't even heard someone mention that. The only thing we've heard that was even credible in that area was Senator John Kennedy introducing a bill that would say, hey, if the government shuts down, members of Congress will not get paid. And they laughed at him. So they absolutely deserve this. And Chris Coons is delusional. Okay. It's not the division, folks. It's the lack of results. Let's go to Jim Jordan, because here's what he said.
New polling shows the disapproval rating for Congress is tied at an all-time high. 86% of people in this country do not think you and your colleagues are doing a good enough job. Do you blame them? The government's shut down every 6 months. I mean, you can't blame people for being annoyed at government, can you?
Well, I get that, I guess. But, that's the Democrats. They shut the government down 42 days in the fall. Now it's 60-some days in the spring. Understand the Democrats' plan when it comes to, because they don't want to fund ICE, but understand what they've done. They first, for 4 years, they let in 10 million illegal migrants. Then they create sanctuary jurisdictions, which make it tough to remove those migrants when they commit another crime. And now they say, we're not going to fund the guys who do the removing. We're not going to fund ICE. So, of course, people are going to be frustrated with the crazy things that the Democrats propose and the crazy things they do. Plus, there's just this general thing, Congress, and when it comes to passing laws and getting stuff done, it's a cumbersome process. What was the Churchill line? Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of government there is except for all the others. So I get that, but that's just part of the way the founders designed this amazing thing we call America with its checks and balances, the best government ever. But it still sometimes is messy. So I get that in a general sense, but specifically it's the crazy Democrat policies that I think are driving Americans and the position that Americans have about Congress.
Again, listen, I like Jim Jordan. I just don't understand why he couldn't acknowledge banning stock trading. That's a huge problem. No one will trust Congress as long as that continues. Let's not even get into foreign countries and their influence into American politicians. Again, people's net worth. I mean, that all of it in it of itself is the problem. Okay. It just fascinates me how they just won't admit that out loud. I want you guys to look at Morning Joe's reaction to this. I think it's funny. Watch.
The Democratic brand is in the garbage. I mean, look, Donald Trump's approval ratings are low. The Republicans in Congress, their approval rating is low. The only thing lower, Democrats' approval ratings in Congress. Look at that. 37% approve, 59% disapprove. Republicans Congress at 41, J.D. Vance at 42, Donald Trump at 42. And you just look nationally at the Democratic brand. It is as low as I have ever seen it.
Yeah. So we look at these numbers again on an individual level. Democrats continue to be in the same position, and the president continues to be at the same position. So just imagine this. Out of all of this discourse, how toxic it has become, how politically fatigued America has become. And through all of this up to this point, the president is still polling higher than everyone else. And Democrats are still polling lower than everyone else. So I think this is another data point or reality check for Democrats out there and also for Republicans. But something tells me that's probably not going to happen. Okay, let's continue into our next story. I guess we could finally talk about something that the Republican Party is doing that's positive. And they had moved on to a reconciliation bill to finally fund Border Patrol and ICE up until the end of this administration. Okay, remember, DHS is partially funded. They refuse to fund ICE and Border Patrol. And so this is the other way around it. Take a look.
Lawmakers on Capitol Hill voting to approve $70 billion in funding for ICE and Border Patrol. We're taking a live look at Capitol Hill, a beautiful start to the day. Now, they are hoping to fully reopen the Department of Homeland Security. This new budget plan, which was passed despite Democratic objections, will ensure both agencies are funded through the end of the Trump administration. It also authorizes 2 Senate committees to potentially triple the budget if they see fit. Its approval sets up a critical vote in the House. Now, if the House approves this budget resolution, the final funding bill can be voted on by both chambers. And Democrats have no way to block this plan. President Trump has set a June 1st deadline to pass the final bill.
Now, it was the great Senator John Kennedy that introduced this idea almost 2 months ago. And when he did, they blew him off. And it's just fascinating that we have finally arrived at this solution that's always been there. This is the incompetence that we are talking about when we speak on the Republican Party. They should have did this 2 months ago. We are already in the month of April, about to be into the month of May, and DHS is still shut down. TSA agents are still worrying about their paychecks. That is a disturbing reality. Again, I don't blame people for not wanting to be air traffic controllers or TSA agents or work for the federal government, not during this time, because Democrats hate the president more than they want to protect and serve the American people, which is why they do not mind hurting federal employees to get what they want. Okay, now having said that, here's an update on TSA agents overall. Take a look.
So much has been tied to pay here of TSA workers. And when the money dries up and they don't get paid, that's when the sick calls go up. That's when the headaches at airports go up. We've seen those long lines at airports like Houston, Atlanta, Baltimore, and New York. And you just heard that soundbite from DHS Secretary Mullen that the DHS will run out of money because of this partial government shutdown by early May. We're talking maybe only a week away. Here is the state of play. TSA workers were being paid $10 billion, siphoned off from the Big Beautiful Bill Act. As of early this week, the Office of Management and Budget Data said that fund has only $1.4 billion remaining, so this is getting pretty dire. Congress could step in, but things are still pretty stalled. Democrats universally opposed to any DHS funding bill that also funds ICE, meaning there is no deal. TSA workers are getting a normal paycheck this week, but a union official tells us there is a 50-50 chance they will receive their next full paycheck, which is due on May 8th. The problem here is that so many TSA workers live paycheck to paycheck. So if they're not getting paid, union officials say many simply need to stay home because they can't pay for things like childcare or even put gas in their cars for their commutes. It leads to these short staffing issues and long lines at airports.
Yeah, so the context here and why that clip was important is because 2 things are happening at the same time. The Republicans are taking it upon themselves through a reconciliation process to get ICE and Border Patrol paid until the end of the Trump administration so that can no longer be used as leverage in regards to defunding the rest of DHS, which is obviously negatively impacting TSA agents, which is actually right around the corner because the funds are about to run out. Remember, when they had voted to fund TSA agents, it was only temporary, okay? So there will be also a vote to make sure that the rest of DHS stays open until the rest of the year. I know it's really complicated financially. Why can't Congress just come up with a budget that will last all 12 months of the fiscal year? I think that's the $1 million question.
I want to draw your attention to something that Chuck Schumer said on the Senate floor last night. He said that nobody respects ICE or Border Patrol. Take a listen.
Adding $140 billion to an agency that nobody, to two groups, Border Patrol and ICE, that nobody respects in this country.
Mr. Secretary, your response?
Well, it makes my ears red.
It takes a lot to get me upset. But Chuck Schumer, no one respects you. The definition of a lying scumbag politician, that is you. You would be the definition if you Googled you right now. I mean, why don't you just come out and be honest with American people? He wants to have open borders. If you want to defund the Customs Border Protection Agency, if you want to defund ICE, who is in there arresting the criminals that the laws were passed by you, you had time to change those during the Biden administration. You didn't, because you're for open borders and you're for the criminals running amok in our cities. And for you to say that is so disrespectful to the law enforcement that that is out there protecting you, because he has a detail with him. How about he walks around these city streets without a detail? I wonder how safe he would feel.
Again, this actually reminds us of the great work that the president has done on the border. No one has crossed the border. That's not an exaggeration. The number is literally zero. There's been zero crossings. I mean, I'm not too sure that's ever happened in history. I mean, probably. I mean, maybe 1800s or something like that. But in the 2000s, no one. I mean, he did such a great job on that border. No one talks about it. And these members of Congress want to do things that would compromise that level of security.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause this here. Let me show you folks that this video does come from Devory Darkins. Hang on a second here. There, come on. There we go. Devory Darkins. I am subscribed to his channel on YouTube, giving him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. All right, let's get back here a little bit. We're running a little long, but we've got some great information here that we need to share out. From Doug in Exile, this is the end of Chuck Schumer. Well, I certainly hope so. He's got such a disgusting mouth. All right, there you have it, folks. Let me, all right, if I can get this thing to, I don't understand what there. All right, this video does come from Doug in Exile. I'm subscribed to his channel. I've given him a thumbs up. I hope you do the same thing for me. Okay, we've got a lot of chatters here that I need to reply to. But let's jump down here and see what Dr. Steve Turley has to say about President Trump reads the Bible to the nation as Senate Dems freak out. I'm sure they do. Okay, let's jump into this. And we're going to run over late tonight, folks, or long, but the information we have is, I think, important.
Beneath the surface of our political moment, and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place to myself for a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes shall be open. Something extraordinary is happening in our nation. What President Trump just did wasn't a photo op. It wasn't a campaign event. What Trump just did was he read aloud the word of God to the entire nation from the White House as the sitting president of the United States. And if you understand what time it actually is in the arc of Western civilization, if you have eyes to see what's actually happening beneath the surface of our political moment, then you know that this week may have been one of the most consequential, symbolic acts of any American presidency in living memory. And we're about to find out exactly why. Hey, gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, enjoying yet another exciting and glorious day in the Trumpian golden age that you made possible back in November 2024. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. This week, President Trump participated in a nationally broadcast marathon Bible reading event alongside some of the most powerful figures in the Republican Party, including Speaker Mike Johnson, the Vice President, members of Congress, and conservative leaders from across the country. The event was organized by a group called the American Bible Reading Marathon, and the goal was to read the entire Bible aloud, cover to cover, as a public act of national consecration. Trump's message was 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves, pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, I will forgive their sin, and I will heal their land. If my people humble themselves, pray, seek my face, turn from their wicked ways, I will heal their land. Now, the secular liberal media simply has absolutely no idea how to even begin to interpret this. The Telegraph published this headline:
Political stunt. Critics slammed Trump's reading of a Bible passage 1 week after posting AI image of himself as Jesus. The borderline illiterates over at USA Today went with this headline: Trump slammed the Pope, depicted himself as Jesus, then he read the Bible. yeah. So let me get this straight, USA Today. He slammed the Pope, he posted a meme, and then he read his Bible. That sounds like a typical day for about 90% of Protestants, okay? But the winner for the trashiest headline goes once again to the British Guardian, a paper that is an insult to toilet paper. With his Bible readings, Trump is doubling down on his God complex. Somehow evangelical Christians are buying it. You got to wonder if anyone will be weeping when Britain finally collapses from the weight of its own idiocy. And of course, what would a Bible reading event in the White House be without the usual freak out of the rise of Christian nationalism? All as Islamic Democrats are taking over our nation's cities. Forget about that. But alas, all of these headlines, every single one of these cynical cesspools, completely miss what is actually happening in our nation and indeed around the world. Because here's what the legacy media does not understand. Here's what they cannot understand and will not understand until it's far too late for them to catch up. We're not living in 1965. We're not living in 1985. We're not even living in 2005. The framework that the American secular press has used to interpret the relationship between faith and public life, the framework built on the assumption that modernity means secularization, that progress means the retreat of religion from the public square, that educated and sophisticated people have moved beyond such superstitions, that secular framework is not just wrong. It is literally the intellectual equivalent of a doctor still prescribing leeches and bloodletting. It belongs in a museum. They, ironically, the secular media, they are the ones completely out of touch with what's really happening in the world. As we speak, the world is going through a religious renewal, the likes of which we've simply never seen. Pentecostalism is the fastest growing religious movement in human history. It's exploding across Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, and the global South at a rate that has no modern parallel. More Muslims are attending mosque than ever before. Orthodox Christianity is experiencing a renaissance in Russia, Eastern Europe, and parts of the former Soviet bloc that would have been unimaginable just 30 years ago. China is going through a Confucian revival led by President Xi, while India is going through a massive Hindu nationalist renewal led by Prime Minister Modi and the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party. Christianity in Africa alone is growing faster than their population growth, which is the fastest growing population in the world, by the way, indicating massive numbers of conversions. More Catholics are attending Mass worldwide than ever before. We could go on and on and on. Rodney Stark, the late sociologist at Baylor University, has argued that we are in the midst of the greatest religious renewal the world has ever seen. So what's happening here, and how does it relate to what just happened in our nation's capital from the Oval Office itself? That's exactly what we're about to find out, and it's going to absolutely blow your mind. But for real participants who have taken out experience of other web viewing this hidden politics, not a backlash that'll recede if the left ever gets back to power. It's a structural transformation of the deepest order, a civilizational tidal wave that's just now beginning to make landfall on the shores of American public life. Now, ironically, what's largely driving this structural shift, this extraordinary return of religion, is demographics. So bottom line, secular liberals have largely stopped having children, all the while religious conservatives are having more children than ever. The data is absolutely unambiguous. secularists and the religiously unaffiliated, the so-called nuns, as researchers have been calling them, they have the lowest fertility rates of any identifiable demographic group in the developed world. In the United States, white secular progressives are reproducing at rates far below the replacement level of 2.1. They're around 1.6 children per woman. In some subgroups, it's as low as 1.3. Meanwhile, theologically committed evangelicals, traditional Catholics, Mormons, Orthodox Jews, they're all reproducing at or above replacement level. And globally, the most religiously devout populations, Pentecostal Africa, Muslim South Asia, Orthodox Christianity in Eastern Europe, they're among the fastest growing demographics on the planet. This is the deepest driver of the theopolitical wave, deeper than Trump, deeper than any single election or cultural moment. The secular liberal order is not being defeated in the most literal biological sense imaginable. It's simply not being born. It's literally not reproducing. And the civilization that is being born, that is radically reproducing in the pews, in the large families, in the homeschool co-ops, in the parish halls, that civilization is arriving, whether the legacy media covers it or not, whether they understand it or not, whether they greet it with ridiculous, cynical headlines or not. And what this demographic shift is doing is it's organically revealing what political order actually is at its core. There's a concept in political theology, going back through a number of theorists like Carl Schmitt and Eric Voegelin, that every political order is at its deepest level a theological order. Every political order is at its deepest level a theological order. That's to say, every civilization answers certain metaphysical questions about the nature of the human person, about the source of legitimate authority, morality, the purpose of life, community, the cosmos. And these answers are always at bottom theological answers. Even the secular liberal order is a theological order. It just substitutes man for God, progress for providence, and the state for the church. But with the inability to reproduce itself, that secular order is being replaced with a far more traditional, conservative, ancient faith. And it's precisely that faith, that biblical vision, that has returned
And this
to the White House.
Shall be an astonishment to every one that passes by it, so that he shall say, why has the Lord done thus to this land and to this house? And it shall be answered, because they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold on other gods, and worshiped them and served them. Therefore has he brought all this evil upon them.
All right, there you have it, folks. Okay, I'm sorry that Doug in Exile, the audio didn't come through, but I will include that in my daily news wrap-up so you guys can hear it. All right, let's jump back here, and I'm going to copy the live chat into comments so it will be a permanent part of this video. And let me remind you that these videos that I've shared with you come directly from the producers. I've got the links in the description box, also the links to the producers channel. I share this information on Murtech.com, so if you want to go there and see any more information, by all means, it's a free site. The link is in the description box. So we will come back in about 15 or 20 minutes with my daily news wrap-up. Here we go. We're going to start off with And We Know. We're going to take off where we left off. But actually, we're going to start off with Doug in Exile because I've seen a lot of comments, a lot of chats that people actually wanted to see that. They were sorry that the audio didn't come through. And I don't know why that happens sometimes. I was actually busy updating my wrap-up list, my playlist for my daily news wrap-up while that was playing, and I just didn't notice that because I can hear it in my headphones, it just doesn't get broadcast out. So I'm That's a glitch in Rumble. Sometimes it happens. This time I wasn't able to catch it, but I will include that in my daily news wrap-up. So go ahead and take a break right now. Grab a cup of coffee or a donut, a sandwich, soft drink or beer, or maybe a glass of wine and some cheese, and meet me back here in 15 or 20 minutes, and I will start off with that video from Doug in Exile, so you can catch that before we actually get into this playlist. And with that being said, I do want to thank you for being here with me. Hopefully, I'll get to see you again later, and may God bless.